Eddie, thank you very much indeed for coming to have a chat with us at England Rugby Travel. It's, I suppose, slightly ironic to be talking travel at the moment, given that we're all allowed out for whatever it is, half an hour a day. We can dream of sunnier times and happier times. How are you, first and foremost? How's life at the moment?
Yeah, look, we're progressing, mate. We're looking forward to the Wales game, which will be our best performance of the Six Nations. So, with the boys coming back in tomorrow, staff in today, so we're busily getting ready, mate.
I don't want to get sort of too deep and too sort of profound, but these are extraordinary times across the board at the moment. How happy is the camp?
Oh well, I think everyone, is finding it difficult, but at the end of the day, we're still grateful for the opportunity to be able to play international rugby. We played against Scotland. 8.7 million people watched it. So whilst we didn't put a lot of smiles on the face of English supporters, I'm sure the Scottish supporters were absolutely delighted. So yeah, we've got a role to play in making sure that we bring some joy to people's lives, and the players are enjoying playing rugby. The rest of the circumstances, we're just battling along, mate, making the most of it.
Good on you. Keep trucking. I suppose just a quick reflection at the moment. I mean, this is obviously all about the most passionate of England fans, England Rugby Travel, those who love to be there and feel a really big part of the team. How curious has it been experiencing Twickenham with nobody there? And I know you're probably getting quite used to it at the moment, but does it still take a little bit of adjusting to?
Yeah, I think we had a bit of a novelty effect in the autumn that the crowds not being in created a whole different environment. But now I think we're realising how much we miss the fans massively. Not that we didn't realise that, but the energy and the atmosphere that they bring to the game, it's missing. And we're doing our best to create our own, and we'll keep doing our best to create our own. But we certainly can't wait until we get fans back in there.
Which is good to hear. I've been watching it on the telly, and they're bleeding in crowd noise. Somebody somewhere is doing a very good job at pressing cheers at the right points. But there was some footage on social media, I think by England Rugby, without any of the crowd noise. And it's fascinating to hear how much chat there is on the field during the game. I just wonder, as someone, you've been coaching since time began, are you actually learning things from listening to players and getting access almost to what's going on out there that you haven't before?
I've actually found they've been quiet, our players.
Really?
And that's something we need to address. We need to be more vocal. We need to be more communicative. Like, the best players in the world are the best commentators. They commentate the game. They're saying what's next. And that has been a strength of ours, but we've fallen off a little bit in that area. So we need to pick that up.
I was going to say, there's probably some commentators now who will tell you they were the best players in the day as well. Perhaps it goes hand in hand. Who is the noisiest? Who is the noisiest out there?
Oh, look, I think Owen and Marrow hold the pedestal there, and you want players to be those really good commentators of the game, and Owen, he plays with his heart on his sleeve, and Marrow's the most passionate player of all.
Funny, the clip that I saw was Owen commentating on Johnny May's finish. And I think he was saying what a finish that was. It's just fascinating insight, I think, from a fan's perspective, that in some ways, removing the crowd, you are getting to see and hear that little bit more. But how is Owen? It's sort of the way of the world at the moment. That everyone's got a lot on their plate and seems to be talking a lot. Does he just stick his head down and get on with it? Do you put an arm around him? How is he personally?
Yeah, well, I think there's a hot seat. And there'll be in England rugby, there's generally either for a player or for a coach, and the media like to have someone in the seat. And at the moment, it's Owen's turn, so he's got to keep his cool, keep his focus, and with better performances. And we acknowledge he hasn't been at his best. He knows that. But when you're averaging, in the equivalent of cricket terms, he's averaging 60 an innings. He deserves a bit of time. If he was averaging 15, then you can understand, well, maybe then there's reason to get on the bandwagon. But, it's all a bit artificial and all a bit silly. I find it quite silly, to be honest.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of people in the middle ground who would certainly agree with you in that. And how are you kind of escaping it all? Are you lighting candles around the bath and having a deep soak and sort of putting the world to rights, or are you out there kicking the dog and soaring down trees?
No, no, no. Look, it's yeah. I always felt it was coming. We've had a good period since the World Cup. You know, if you look at 2019, 2020, 2021 was always going to be difficult for us because I think up in the Northern Hemisphere, and I don't have any rhyme or reason for it, but I was talking to a couple of people about it the other day. You can generally stay at the top for about 2 years, and then there's some sort of fatigue comes in, whether it be success fatigue, emotional fatigue. I'm not sure about it. You look at it in the football, it's very similar. So it's our period now to refresh and regenerate, and we just got to do that with urgency and do it the right way. So it's bizarrely quite a good period for a coach to be in.
Do you quite enjoy periods like this, the challenge and the heat of it all? Or would you prefer it when it's plain sailing?
Uh, you don't enjoy it when you're in it because you do feel the heat, like anyone. We all feel the heat. But it is the test of your coaching. This is when you find out whether you can coach or not. And that's the enjoyable part.
Yeah. What have you learnt over the first two games of Scotland and the Italy game? What have you put in your notebook?
You can never underestimate battle-hardened players, and we didn't have battle-hardened players, you know, and there was nothing we can do about it. We're not making that as an excuse, but we went in the first game underprepared, and there was nothing we could do about it. You know, we get the players 10 days before they've been with their clubs. A lot of them missed a lot of games, a lot of them missed a lot of training, and we just weren't ready for the encounter. Now that's my fault. I should have found better ways to get that 10 days right. So that's the first thing. Secondly, we've got a very honest and hardworking group of players. They don't try to hide. They're at it, and they do everything to make their fans proud. And then thirdly, I think the rugby's been really good in the Six Nations. You know, 3 months ago, everyone again is talking about the death and the gloom of Test rugby. Oh, it's bloody terrible. Oh, we can't watch this. And we've had some great ball movement games, and we've had some great contestable games. And now rugby's great. And all along it has been great. You know, we're playing the greatest game of all. And the great thing about it, Alex, is that we do get this variation. Between tough, tight contests like the Ireland France game, and then you get free-flowing games where the ball moves around, like our Italian game.
Yeah. Are you philosophical about the yo-yo that you find yourself on, about the fact that rugby's dreadful 3 months ago and now it's the greatest game, and you're the wizard one week and the next you're not? Or do you want to sometimes scream and shout about it?
No, I love it when people think I'm an idiot, mate.
Right.
And I just hope when I finish coaching, I don't become one of those coaches who know everything, or a player who knows everything. I just hope that.
I reckon they're already making a filthy cup of coffee for you in a television studio of your choice. You can pick and go wherever you like. What about I'm really excited to hear that you feel the Wales game is going to be your best performance. What's on the to-do list between now and then?
Well, it's our third game, and players will be a bit battle hardened. For us, it's our attitude of just going out there and be aggressive and attack them. And when we play that sort of rugby, we're very hard to beat. But obviously the opposition's try to stop you doing that. We've found in the scrum that sides are mucking around an engagement to take away our power. They've found ways to stop our tank in the last couple of games. And our attack, we tried to add a couple of things to our attack for the Scotland game. We didn't have time to put it in, and it just confused the players. And we went back to our more let's just play more aggressively, attack the gain line. And I think if we do that, it's going to be a wonderful performance by us.
Which is brilliant to hear. Just quickly, you mentioned about the fact that you took responsibility for that Scotland game. I'm curious, how do you work through that? Is that a long walk and a sort of a conversation with yourself? Is that back to the analysis table? How do you process that?
No, well, spends Saturday night trying to get it out of the system. Wake up Sunday morning and still feel crummy. And then from about 8 o'clock onwards on Sunday morning, start working out, right, what do we got to do? Try to work out what are the three key priorities that we've got to address going forward. You know, one of them might be mindset, one of them might be tactical, one of them might be a connection in the team we've got to improve. So I'll work out those three. Then I'll meet with the assistant coaches, run that past them, see if they've got anything to add or take away from it, and then we start infiltrating that into the team, and the team owns that as well. You know, a lot of what we do now, Alex, is much more shared responsibility. You know, the old days when the coach got at the front of the room and told everyone what to do is gone. The younger players now want to be involved in the decision making. It's a change in the way they see their roles, and so we share the responsibility. We'll give them a direction in which to go, and then they'll fill in the blanks.
That's interesting. Life moves pretty fast, to go all Ferris Bueller. It sort of seems that you don't have long to dwell on these things. How are the players kind of filling the time? I understand there's a lot of gaming going on. There's a bit of a golf simulator, etc. Are you picking up the controller and beating them at FIFA, or are you kind of letting them get on with that on their own?
No, I'm not involved, mate. But it has become more taxing, I suppose is the right word. Yeah, in the autumn we were able to at least share spaces, and we had to socially distance. But now, well, particularly the last 3 or 4 weeks, we haven't been able to be indoors together, and the weather's been, as you know, quite cold. So when we've had meetings outdoors, which obviously have to be quite brisk to meet the weather requirements, and the players have been doing things in their rooms by themselves, and that interaction we have missed. But the players are quite inventive. You know, I think Ellis Genge and Luke Cowan-Dickey have been running a gaming group that incorporates probably about 30% of the playing group, and the more academic players that have been studying, the more Netflix players have been Netflixing. And so they've found their time, but we'd obviously like to spend more time together, and hopefully that'll come in the future.
You have, I can't remember when you started coaching. What year did you start picking up a clipboard?
1996, mate.
Was it 96? Of all you've seen in the game, is this the most curious period you've been through, or have you got other things where you'd point to and go, actually, that was a roller coaster?
Oh, I think now and when professional rugby came in, you know, which was 96, they were the biggest changes in the game. You know, now everything's been, you know, a game that's based on camaraderie and interaction has now been, you've got to prepare without interaction, without camaraderie, of trying to find a way to get that aggression and that arousal on the field is the most challenging thing. And professional rugby, you know, everything was stood on its head. The whole game became different. Players took on a different persona. You know, coaches had different responsibilities. Administrators had different responsibilities. So I'm lucky enough to live through these 2 cycles. Maybe I won't reach a third one, mate.
Still smiling, though. That's the main thing. A quick couple of other questions. What have you made of the other runners and riders in the Six Nations this year?
Yeah, no, really good. I think it's great competition. Yeah, France are doing well. France and Scotland are doing really well. France with Dupont, who's been absolutely outstanding. You know, there was question marks on his game, whether he'd be tactically sharp enough, because he's such a brilliant player, but he's evolving quite nicely into a real leader of that team. And the question is, are they going to rely on him too much? But they're a good team, and Hogg, I think, has been unbelievable for Scotland, giving them a whole different perspective of how to play the game. You kick against Hogg and he hurts you. You know, he gets you back. He gets Scotland back into the attacking 50, and then they're within point scoring. So they've done really well. Ireland's going through that sticky period where they've got a new coach. They've got some players who are probably closer to the other side of the mountain. And Andy's trying to get them to play differently. You know, they went from Joe Smith, who initially coached a freewheeling game. You know, that's how he likes to play. Bay of Plenty, side-to-side rugby, you know. Watch the ITM Cup and watch Bay of Plenty play, and you'll see how Joe likes to coach. But he evolved Ireland into a very strategic, very tactical, tight team that became very successful. And again, like any strength of your team, that runs to an end, and then you have to change. And Andy's in that difficult position where he's trying to change the team now. So they're evolving, but they'll find their bit. He's a good man, Andy. And Wales have gone back to a bit of Wasaball.
Who'd have thought it?
They got criticised for playing Wasaball. Successful. New coach comes in, tries to play it, and they're not successful. He gets criticised, and they've gone back again. And it's a good job by Pivac. I think he's done really well to because he's got to win. Otherwise, he won't be there. And Wasaball gives you probably, in terms of all the metrics of the game, the greatest chance of winning. And then Franco Smith, I think, has done a great job with Italy. They've got some good young players. Yeah, what pleased me about our game against them was that was one of the first times I played against the Italian team that's tried to beat you. They really tried to attack, really had a go, showed a lot of courage. They got some good young players coming through. And when you look at Italy, where they are, and when you look at where Japan are, you'd think if Italy can stick at it with their young players, they've got a good coach. Yeah, there's no reason why they can't be knocking on the door of 8th to 9th in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, so which is good to see. Great Six Nations, doesn't it?
Certainly does. And England Rugby Travel supporters will be really pleased that they've got the headline before everyone else, because Wasaball is going to be all over the media next week. I can see that in the red tops. A couple of quick ones just to finish. What are your hopes for the rest of the tournament?
That each game we get considerably better. We'll be much better against Wales, and then obviously we've got France and Ireland to finish off with, which are good challenges for us. As I said, we're finding ourselves again. We don't say that too much in the media, but we're finding ourselves again, and we're going through a period where at the end of the Six Nations we'll be a better team than we were at the start of the Six Nations. So that's the exciting thing.
Good. And the final word, we touched earlier about the noise that is out there at the moment and the yo-yo of being, a head coach in a professional sport. What would you love from the true, the loyal, the really eager England fans over the next couple of weeks?
Look, I think, I don't expect anything. I expect them to just keep supporting the team. I think your best fans are always unconditional. They keep supporting the team. They understand that you go through crests and troughs, and when you're going through a crest, they're happy for you. When they're going through a trough, they're still supporting you. The best people in rugby are those unconditional people. It's like, any relationship you have, isn't it? You want unconditional love, and it's the same with your supporters. And I can guarantee you the players are working hard. They're doing their best to be at their best. And sometimes we don't find it, but that's not through lack of desire or lack of work ethic. So if our supporters can keep giving us that unconditional love, we'll be very pleased, mate.
We're all searching for unconditional love somewhere in the world. Eddie, lovely to catch up.
You look like you found it, mate, with those symmetric lamps, eh?
That's not unconditional. That comes with a very, very large checkbook, unfortunately. Eddie, lovely to catch up. Thank you so much for your time and for joining us with England Rugby Travel. And it goes without saying, we wish you the very best.
Okay, good on you, Alex. Nice to chat to you.
Hello, Ben Kay. I think, what is this, Zoom number 600,000? I mean, where are we at in life at the moment?
Something like that. We're nearly there. You can see light at the end of the tunnel, Paino.
It's been a long time. No, we won't do that. Thank you. It's a very professional outfit, thankfully. How are you? It's very nice to see you. We love the backdrop, obviously.
Thank you.
How's life? How's the last 12 months been?
Yeah, look, I think like everyone, that ups and downs, but I've obviously been very lucky that eventually rugby started again, and I've actually been able to get out of the house a bit and go around and watch some games. I think sort of probably feel very privileged that even the people that would be diehard fans that go every week haven't been able to, and yet we've still been able to turn up into the stadiums and broadcast into people's living rooms.
Spreading a bit of light as you've done so, I think people have been clinging to live sport more than ever before. Have you felt that a bit in what you're doing?
Yeah, definitely, and I absolutely believe, rugby we can be a bit cynical, and we could always moan about things that are wrong with our sport and things, but I genuinely believe that when things open up again, people will have realised how special the sport is to them, both at a professional level, but also that the amateur level. There were maybe a few wanings in terms of numbers at clubs and things, and I think everyone is expecting a bit of a bounce back. Of course, there are things that aren't good, people getting out of the habit of going down to their local rugby club or going down to support their team. But I genuinely believe, it'll be difficult to get tickets for a lot of the games because everyone is so desperate to get out and watch it live rather than listen to us on the telly.
Oh, I don't know about that. It's been quite a lot of fun actually lighting the fire and listening to you do your thing. I do agree though. I think there will be a lot of people who will be springing around like old lambs with dodgy hips, etc. Have you got any temptation to get back out there and play a little bit of grassroots, a bit of vet?
No, absolutely not. I played a couple of charity games when I finished. I still keep relatively fit, but I always said when I finished playing, I'd do all the sports that I never got a chance to as a professional rugby player. And even that hasn't quite worked out. But a lot of those sports were a lot less painful than rugby. So
what's on that list? Are we looking at kabaddi and sort of badminton,
yes,
or are we looking at sumo and something else?
Absolutely. Yeah, all of those. I tend to combine all of them, actually. So I'm a champion kabaddi sumoist. Look, just everything. The one thing I think that the difficulty, because my diary changes so much, what I really miss about playing is having that network of teammates, and very lucky with the TV stuff that the guys on BT Sport are all the same guys, and I still, when working for ITV, bump into my old sort of 2003 teammates. So very lucky that connection's there, but I just can't commit to playing every Thursday or turning up to training. So that's what I really miss, is the team environment.
I'm looking forward to seeing you do your kabaddi badminton. I think that sounds a lot of fun. How weird has it been broadcasting? I mean, particularly around those empty stadiums. Have you found it at times a little disconcerting?
Yeah, I think particularly over the last sort of 3 weeks, being at stadiums where they would be absolutely rocking if they were full, and not having that, and we have a little volume control, so we can up the effects and down the effects of the pumped in crowd noise, which I'm sure a lot of the viewers would want themselves. It's brutal listening to it with no crowd noise at all. You can't get the tone in your voice. You can't get excited about things. And particularly that Gloucester game last week, the London Irish game where they came back against Bristol, and just a stunning game that would have been absolute chaos in the stadium. You wouldn't have been able to hear yourself talking as a commentator, and we really missed that. The only plus side is being able to get away from the grounds quickly with no traffic. But apart from that, it feels so soulless, and it must be really difficult for the players. And I think we've probably seen the effects of it with the fact that away wins have gone up through the roof, really, because there just isn't that intimidation factor. I think the referees probably aren't affected as much as they would be. And that's not to say they deliberately do it or they're deliberately biased, but just that horrible noise when you're against the team must get into your subconscious somewhere. So it's evened things up a little bit, but God, we can't wait to get back to full crowds.
And so say all of us. I just was wondering on England games, etc., and particularly if you take that England-Scotland game, are you conscious that now there's no one else around, what you're saying can probably be heard by Eddie Jones, who's sitting 4 rows in front of you, or not? Have you had to temper your comment?
Unfortunately, I didn't do the England-Scotland one. I did the Italy one. So no, I think we're far enough away from Eddie, and we all know, with a lot of his selection policies, that Eddie doesn't listen to anyone in the media anyway. So there's absolutely no danger of him being offended by something we said.
What have you made of it? From an England perspective, what have you made of the first 2 games?
Obviously, it's very easy to say this now that the results come in, but I genuinely thought Scotland were going to be a lot better than a lot of people were predicting. If you look at some of that squad and how they've performed in domestic competition and European competition, it's a handy squad that can do a lot of damage. And I think England haven't quite discovered their confidence that they obviously had in that New Zealand game in the semi-final. And they haven't really found it through the autumn or through the back end of the Six Nations. Whatever anyone says, the chat about how they were playing would get to the players at some stage. It does have an impact on your psychology, no matter how they're trying to exude that we don't listen to what anyone says. The fact that people were saying you're not hitting your straps, you're not difficult to play against, that I'm sure somewhere would have resonated. And I think the problem with the Six Nations, obviously, and it's unlike any other tournament, you have to hit the ground running, because no one cares unless you win. No one cares unless you're going for a Grand Slam. And all the momentum can be totally taken away. Conversely, you win your first couple and suddenly teams that no one were talking about are going, oh, they're not that bad, are they? And it's all a momentum tournament.
Yeah. I just wondered from your experience, do you remember points, there's obviously so much glory in your career, but do you remember seasons where you're just like, I just can't get it off the square, I can't find the middle of the bat kind of thing? And I wondered if you remembered what it was that then fired you again.
Absolutely. Personally and as a team, definitely. Personally, how that manifests itself, I think, is you there's a real danger of you trying not to make mistakes, which means it makes it so much worse, because you end up running around not doing anything to challenge the opposition because you're trying to play so safe. And that's a big problem. Sometimes you've got to take risks when everyone's telling you that don't make any more mistakes. I think as a team, it's sometimes very difficult to get out of, and you need to look to the spark players. The very lucky, even in bad times with England, for me to have the likes of Jason Robinson around you that could just light the touch paper out of nothing. Big game players that can just do something which then everyone feeds off. And once a team has that confidence, the problem with a lack of confidence, and everyone talks about form, all form is a lack of confidence, which means you hesitate, you question whether what you're doing is exactly right. And if you hesitate in a line out, the hooker misses the throw. If you hesitate in a backs move, it breaks down because the guy on the wing has to end up putting the brakes on and he can't finish off a try. So that whole psychology that Eddie will be working on now is just trying to break those shackles and get the flow back into the team, because we know that despite what everyone says about the selections and who he's picking in the midfield, we know that team can score some impressive tries. We know the way they can play, but at the moment that it's just all a bit playing by numbers, playing by the book. And all it needs, for all everyone says about England's style of play, when New Zealand were playing some of the best rugby we'd ever seen, they were kicking more than any other team. But the times that they held on to it, they did something that no one else could do. And you could feel when you were playing against New Zealand on occasions that you were in the game. They weren't doing anything really to stress you. And then suddenly, in a 6-minute period, they could blow you away and the game was over. And that's where England need to get to. And if you have those 2 or 3 big highlight moments in a game, at the end of the game, everyone's going, wow, aren't England playing fantastic rugby? If you don't have them, you're the team that just kept kicking the ball away.
It's really interesting. It's really interesting to hear you put it like that, actually. Just quickly, do you see this England team rediscovering their mojo, or would you see a bit of a shake and a bake to try and rediscover that fire?
I can see them discovering their mojo, but equally, I'd like to see a few people come in to challenge the old guard. I think one of the challenges with international rugby is trying to sort of form this club environment where everyone sort of feels like they're together and everyone sort of knows what each other's trying to do. The danger with taking that too far is everyone feels a little bit comfortable in the international environment. So getting that balance where people aren't afraid that they're going to get dropped, but equally they know they have to perform at absolutely 100% level. Otherwise, the next cab off the rank, and it's a situation that no other coach has to be able to choose from any player that he wants. He doesn't have a fixed squad really. They do at the moment, but next time round. And I'd just like to see even Clive did it, who had 2003 was probably the most settled squad England rugby had ever had going in. But even in the 2 years before the World Cup, there were just a couple of curveballs that he went, well, I'll give you a shot, and if you take it, you've got a chance of getting into this World Cup squad. And there were a lot of players that had the shot and didn't really make it, and equally there were guys that sort of got into the squad and came through quite late. So I'd like to see just a bit of pressure. Gutted for Jack Willis. I genuinely believe that he could be a future England captain. Not only his performances on the field, which, a captain always has to have that high level of performance that never drops, and he's got that, but also how he conducts himself off the field, sort of quite quiet, but equally has the respect of everyone, very personable. I think he would have made an excellent captain in the future sometime. Hopefully he still will. But I thought he was a guy that, having been left out by Eddie, could come through.
Fingers crossed. We'll see him back doing what he does best sooner or later. So just a quick sort of look ahead, I suppose, to the Wales game. I mean, Eddie's been talking about was a ball. He's just beginning to reheat the souffle a little bit in that regard, and Wales have gone back to type. He also has said that he thinks this will be their best performance, and by some distance. Do you see signs of that, or are you a little more cautious?
Yeah, because I think Wales are, they for all their standing in the table, they haven't quite hit their straps of playing a game. They'd all pat themselves on the back on Monday and go, nothing needs tweaking this week. Now I know no team would ever do that, but equally they'll know there's more in the tank. They'll equally be fearful of not being the underdogs going into this game because England haven't quite hit their straps as well. So it's a real sort of double-edged sword for them. They know what's coming, but they almost have to force the agenda themselves and play a style of rugby that England can't live with the pace. And we know the threat that they've got out wide, which is absolutely huge. But I expect England to really try and dominate with the forward pack. I think that's an area, get that platform, which means that the Welsh defensive line can't get any line speed. As a result, they're not as much of a nuisance at the breakdown. It all just becomes a bit passive. And then the England backs will obviously have a much better platform to attack off. The big thing for England, I think, as well, will be the kicking game and making sure that it's kicked to compete, because the last thing you want to be doing is kicking loosely to that back three with loads of grass in front of them to run into. So I think they'll shorten their kicking game down, and a massive task for Ben Youngs, if selected, to make sure that's not always been his strongest point, is getting those box kicks on the money. But in Johnny May, he's got one of the best at getting those balls back. And then once you do make those steals, best time to attack off, because no team's prepared to go straight into defence when they think they're going to be running the ball back at you.
But the victor on Saturday will be?
England. England have had a bit of their pain, and I think although that performance, that probably the last thing you wanted would have been to England to have thrashed Italy, all to have gone too well. They won convincingly. Some people questioning some of the scores, but they did what they needed to do, and it was the next step to rediscovering. But they wouldn't have wanted to save their best performance of the tournament for Italy. I think they probably will want to save it for Wales.
Fingers crossed. Where are you watching it at the weekend?
I will probably be in a car somewhere because I'm commentating on the Italy game. So
I see. Yes,
I am in Italy this weekend. I'm in Rome. Yeah,
lovely. Nudge, wink, wink.
Taking a nice bottle of Barolo down to the studio and a load of antipasti and pretending I'm there.
Very good. Ben, it's lovely to catch up as always. Enjoy Rome this weekend. Fingers crossed you're right on the England front as well, and we'll look forward to seeing you at an England rugby travel event before too long. Thanks, Ben.
Cheers, Alex.